I'm live now. Awesome. Hello, everybody, and welcome to the Aurora live stream. My name is Byrne, and I am here so excited for the launch of Aurora. Thank you so much for everybody who has already backed. The Kickstarter has been live for only about 8 hours at this point, and already we've raised, I think I'm just double checking it now, 130,000 towards the well over the goal now. We are. In fact, we backed it in, I think, about 16 minutes it was. So thank you so much for backing Aurora, jumping on board with this amazing journey. And it has been an amazing journey for all those folks who have been developing it. I'm really excited to be able to speak with some of them today. So I'm not going to take any credit here. I'm going to jump straight in by inviting into this live stream chat Phil Beckwith, who is the project manager on Aurora Age of Desolation, and Shawn Merwin, who I hope I'm pointing the right way. I'm not sure where they are quite on my stream, but Shawn Merwin, the lead designer for Aurora, who birthed the idea for these 5 realms from his mind. Welcome both to the stream. Phil, how are you feeling this morning, this early Australian morning?
Early Australian morning. Yeah, it's been difficult to sleep, to be honest. And also, thanks for having me as well. Yeah, no, it's been difficult to sleep. Just I'm always a nervous wreck when it comes to launching Kickstarters. So always like refresh, making sure things are going smoothly. But no, I'm very grateful to be in the position we're in.
Not your first Kickstarter rodeo, but your second one with Ghostfire, I believe. You were sort of behind the scenes helping with Sunken Isles.
I was, yes. That's right. That's right. So yeah, it's exciting.
Shawn, how are you feeling? This is, as I mentioned a moment ago, your brainchild that has been birthed into the world, and we're showing everybody almost the entire thing. I suppose they're not quite having the book in their hands quite yet. But how are you feeling about the launch of the Kickstarter and how it's gone so far?
With any project, I'm mostly terrified and thrilled and pleased and relieved and still anxious. So many, so many feelings come out when you create something and then present it for the first time to the audience.
For sure.
Yeah, absolutely.
Is your anxiety level, or excitement level, I should say, about the same as Monster Grimoire, a little bit higher, a little bit lower?
It's a little bit higher on this. For Monster Grimoire, I was working in a world that someone else had already created, and there was a lot of lore, and there was a lot of content already, and there was an audience for it that was built in, waiting to receive this. So with this project, since it is a new world and there are a lot of new rules that we're experimenting with and hoping that people will enjoy, there's a little bit more anxiety in my heart and in my head about how it will be received and how it will do.
That's always the way when you put something sort of creative out there to the world. It's like, here, a little piece of my heart for you to look over. Cool. Well, Aurora is jam-packed, as you mentioned, with new rules, exploration, survival. It feels like you've completely reinvented the way that characters are created for 5th edition. We'll jump into all of that in a moment. I just want to mention to those watching, I do have the stream open here, so I can see the chat. If you have questions for Shawn and or Phil, please throw them in there, and I will read through and try to catch as many as I can, and we will put them to the designers ourselves. We've got them here. We can interrogate them. We can shine light in their eyes, but maybe not, because that would be mean. So I think what we might do, actually, I think the most appropriate way to start this stream, it's a little bit early for it, but let's jump in and show the cinematic trailer, which I think is absolutely incredible. It sets the atmosphere for Aurora really, really well. I get chills every time that I see this. There's only one thing that gives me chills more, and that we will show it a little bit later when it comes to Aurora. But if we're ready, Dante on the back end. Beep, 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 beep.
The tale of Aurora and the 5 realms is ancient. It began long ago when the dragons arrived from another world. But a great evil had followed them. Together, we stood against it, the dragons at our side. Yet evil does not release its grip so easily. And in our most desperate hour, a powerful being was set forth to turn the tide. Alas, our victory came at great cost. The world of Aurora broke into 5 realms, each its own plane. They became harsh places to survive, each realm with its own unique challenges. Exploring these hellscapes was pivotal to survival, though rarely an easy task. Then the dragons turned on Aurora, and our survival became harder still. The dragons changed and became savage. But we learned to adapt and overcome these challenges. The time is nigh. You are our final hope for survival. But first you must survive. Aurora.
I love that trailer. I love the atmosphere. I love the mood that it sets. I love the music. Phil, what was it like bringing all of that together over the last couple of weeks? And talk about who, like, because that was a creative team that worked on that. That wasn't just individuals.
It was, yeah. So a big shout out to Marius Bota, who's one of our art directors and did all the art direction for that cinematic. And really, it started with the concept that Shawn gave me from a script point of view. But then I handed over to Marius, who took it and storyboarded it and put it out and got some amazing artists to work on that. Like that dragon, that red dragon at the end where it's breathing fire. Fantastic. I love that piece of art. And yeah, so we had to go find some music backing for it, a VO voiceover for it, and the voice actor, his name is Richard. I can't remember his last name. I keep wanting to say Richard Armitage because he sounds like Richard Armitage, but he's not.
Does sound like Richard Armitage.
But he's fantastic, and he did such a good job. Got it in probably the second take, and just absolutely nailed it. And of course, trusty Dante in the background who helped us mix it as well. So everybody really came together to bring us this fantastic, I guess, sneak peek into the 5 realms of Aurora. It's fantastic.
I remember hearing, because I got to hear a couple of the other VOs that we considered alongside Richard, not Armitage.
Yeah.
And I remember you saying you were going for like an older kind of like, wise old man. But as soon as we heard Richard, not Armitage's voice, it was like that dude, like that is
that guy.
The gravitas that he brings to the realms of Aurora.
Absolutely. I will find the.
We will credit you properly,
the name
Richard,
before
not
the end
Armitage.
of the stream.
We apologize. Shawn, how do you feel seeing that? Kind of bring your initial concepts into flesh, so to speak. That was a bit of a weird way of putting it, but
no, I understand. You never get used to seeing something like the art or the music or the visuals that go with something you've created. You never can, the chills never stop, especially if you're not talented in that area like I am not. To see any bit of art that the art director Susan Helmay does, and all the artists that she does, or the music and all of that, it's mind expanding, and you almost wish you had it beforehand so you can then use it to inspire your work. But obviously you can't have that until you have the work that inspires it. So that's why you have to go out and look for other inspiration sometimes and pull from that.
For sure.
Yeah, absolutely.
I know exactly what you mean, and I think that that music, like I have a soundtrack of fantasy music and old folk music and stuff that I listen to when I'm preparing for D&D campaigns, and I think that just sets the tone for Aurora incredibly well. We do have some questions coming in from the chat. The easiest one that I can answer very quickly is George asking how long the stream will be. We'll be going for at least another hour, so we're going until I think 7:30 Eastern time. Or 8:30 a.m. My time. The reason I mentioned that is because we will be showing off another little tidbit like the trailer, the song that was developed for Aurora in a little bit. I really can't wait to see that, because in terms of setting tone, that is just top notch. That is next level. But before we get there, we do have a couple of questions. Teasers on the subclasses. Phil, you mentioned to me just before we went live, there are 15 currently new subclasses in Aurora. Right. Wanted to make sure this was jam-packed full of new mechanics and things for people to sink their teeth into. What can you tell me?
All right. There are subclasses. Let me open the document. So there are subclasses. A lot of them do relate to the 5 different realms. You've got, I think there's druids that can work with lightning. For Galat, the blue dragon desert electrical storm realm. What else can I tell you without giving too much away? Let me bring it up. I don't have it handy. There's subclasses for every single standard class in your standard D&D. There's we've got a bunch of backgrounds as well which feed into it, and a lot of those backgrounds as well. There's 15 backgrounds too that feed into the I guess the lore of Aurora and how the people live in these lands laid to waste, and how it really drives home their sort of cultures and survival, I guess, is key. And it really does give us the option to really create these grounded characters in this world.
Speaking of the lore, you kind of touched on it, and wanting the characters to feel like they are rooted in Aurora, that they are really part of that campaign world when you 100%. Play within Aurora. Let's talk a little bit about the lore of Aurora, about the 5 realms themselves. I'm not going to try and pronounce them all off the top of my head. Phil, Shawn, do either of you want to give it a go?
Yeah, sure. So we have Mogsterma, which is the Red Dragon's realm. We have Galat, which is the Blue Dragon's realm. You'll notice that all of these realms are tied intrinsically to the 5 chromatic dragons. We have Kor, which is the Black Dragon's realm. We have Tievma, which is the Green Dragon's realm. And then we also have, which one am I missing? Prazola, the White Dragon's realm. And really these realms have been taken over by the dragons' regional effects gone wild, turned up to 11. So it's really just, in the White Dragon's realm, it is a frozen wasteland. In the Red Dragon's realm, it's volcanoes and lava and explosions and all sorts of cool stuff. So yeah, it's really everything. We just want to crank it to 11.
Yeah. Sounds like great holiday places too. But also like building mechanics, right? It isn't just like D&D can typically be 5e at least, can be like, oh, you're in a lava realm and there's kind of patches of lava places, but to get to A to B, you just kind of get there, unless a random encounter or something is thrown at you. But there's survival mechanics, there's exploration mechanics thrown into this book to really bring those back into the forefront as one of the pillars of play.
Yeah.
Yeah. When I envision this world, it's been in my mind for 20 plus years. And the basic theme behind it is, one of the things I learned in creative writing is eschew conventional wisdom. There's a place for conventional wisdom. but then there's also a place to turn everything on its head. And so if you think of your D&D game and you think of a trope like we meet at the tavern, the question I try to ask when I create settings is, what if there is no such thing as a tavern? Where do you start your adventure? Right. One of the concepts of 4th edition D&D was a points of light setting, where there were these pockets of civilization, and outside of those, there was mystery and danger. My question was, what if there are no points of light? What if you are just in the darkness to start? How would a campaign like that work? What are some fun things that you could do to surprise and delight your players as the game master in a world like this? So when I concepted this world, it was, we are not going to have safety as at the start of the adventure. There is not going to be a place where you can go to rest that's safe. And what sort of stories come out of that? Because right, D&D and any role-playing game, it's a game. It has mechanics, it has rules, but it's an engine for telling and creating stories. So let's find a way to create that engine, and those stories that are produced, the artifacts of play, are stories that we've never imagined before, or don't imagine a lot, don't get to do a lot in a typical setting. So that's where that was the starting point from which I began to build out these realms and the story of the dragons and how they were displaced from their own world and brought to Aurora, and then what happened when they arrived.
And what did happen when they arrived? Because I'm curious to know more about that. That, you know, the trailer opens with the story of Aurora is ancient, and you know, there is a deep lore to that. The 5 remaining dragon lords that rule over each of these realms, correct me if I'm wrong, are sort of infected with this kind of almost like cosmic force known as shardscale. Talk to me about shardscale. Talk to me about the dragon lords and kind of how we ended up with the 5 realms as they are.
Sure. The dragons they're not indigenous to Aurora. They had their own world, and on that world they were invaded by, you described it very well, it's sort of a sentient infestation of this gem-like material called shardscale. And shardscale is drawn to magic, and the dragons were very magical creatures, so naturally they came and began to conquer the dragons on the dragon world. The dragons fell to this. There was no way they could fight it, so they found a way using their magic to let a few of their residents, dragons and their kin, escape to another world where there was no of the shard scale. So they came to Aurora. Now, Aurora originally was just a typical fantasy setting. People fought. There were elves and dwarves and all of the things that you would find in a normal fantasy setting. Suddenly, dragons arrive. What do people do when these huge sentient lizard-like creatures arrive? Well, some of them want to kill them. Some of them want to worship them. You get you get a variety of different stories that you could tell there. Yeah. But as we are wont to do, we fall into a pattern. So the dragons survive. They don't get, some of them get along fine with the rest of the species. Some of them don't, but life goes on. So we get your typical D&D setting then, with dragons that are sort of aloof and mysterious and present, but dangerous. And of course, after a while, the shard scale is going to be able to follow these dragons and do so. They begin to now invade the world of Aurora. What happens then is the dragon goddess, figures a way to shield Aurora, but it takes a great sacrifice. It sacrifices literally every living creature on the planet. So, but by doing so, the goddess is able to push the shard scale out and create new life, with the dragons being the progenitors. However, when all of the creatures that sacrificed themselves did so, this goddess was infused with all of their traits, all the traits of the dwarves and humans and troglodytes, and you name it. This goddess became part. These traits became part of the goddess. So when the dragons began to spawn new creatures, there were dragons and dragonkin, but there were also these amalgams of all different types of creatures that sacrificed themselves. And that's how the world was repopulated, with a variety of creatures that looked nothing like what was originally there, but had traits of those creatures. So how does that translate to rules?
I'm glad you asked
Yes.
that question. We've had the question from Tommy Krat. How does character creation change? I just want to say quickly, I am banking your question, so if we don't get to it immediately, I have them all here to ask as we go along. But Shawn, you've brought us to it so wonderfully, and it feels like, from what I've understood, that you've almost reinvented character creation for 5th edition. Please talk to us about how you create an adventurer for Aurora, or a survivor for Aurora.
Yes.
I'm going to let Phil answer this, but I want to start with a lot of the work that we're about to talk about in terms of game design was done by Scott Fitzgerald Gray.
Yeah.
Right.
Who did an absolutely amazing job with the parts of this, the rules that he worked on. If you don't know Scott's name, go open any Wizards of the Coast D&D product and look at editor, and chances are probably 80% chance that you will see his name in any book that you open from like 3rd edition, 4th edition, and 5th edition. Scott is an incredible writer, editor, designer, and his work on this was invaluable. Now I'm gonna let Phil. I'm taking all the oxygen out of the room and my lungs, so I will let Phil talk about that for a minute.
For sure. So the character creation, it's heavily centered around the fact that there are no more humanoid races or standard playable races. What you have is a myriad of I think we've got about just over 80 singular traits, I guess, like ancestral traits, we'll call them, where you can pretty much Lego a character together in terms of its natural being from an ancestral point of view to create a completely unique character. What this means is when you've got and some of these traits, or most of these traits, you can double up and get additional benefits. That sort of gets around the issues where, you know, if you've already got something and your subclass gives you that same trait, you're not wasting a trait. You can actually build on that trait as well. So you've got so many options that really no character's going to ever be completely 100% the same. So you're looking at, I think we worked it out in Discord the other day. I think it was over 1 billion different combinations that you can put together for a character in terms of its ancestral abilities outside of class and backgrounds and any other sort of boons, feats that you might get.
And the min-maxers rejoiced as they looked upon the 80 traits to be able to figure out how these stack together. Can you give us a little hint on maybe what 1 or 2 of them might be, like examples of how these might be put into practice?
Well, Shawn, you want to take this one, mate?
I will bring up the document here.
Yeah.
Give me one moment. And I think what you said is important, and that is, you know, min-maxers rejoice. Race as a game mechanic is there as a story, but it's also there as a way for players to more easily create characters.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And by doing what we're doing, you do open up to combinations where people can obviously make very powerful characters. But that's okay, because as a game master, you have the right to have a talk with your players. And as long as everyone is okay with how everyone is playing, that's great.
Yeah.
And this is not we're not in an organized play setting where, you have to take whatever anyone brings to the table. You can do all sorts of things, including say, that combination, think about how fun that is going to be for everyone at the table. And if the answer is it's not, then you can work from there.
Sure.
Of course.
And I am looking at player options right now. So, for example, one character trait is might be, as I scroll. Oh, we also divide them into 3 categories: combat traits,
Of course.
Right.
role-playing traits, and exploration traits.
Gotcha.
So they are limited to what you can take per category.
Mhm.
So you can't pile all the combat traits onto your character. You do have to spread them out. So, for example, one might be a natural attack. So you may have a bite or a claw, and so you have this ability to do a certain amount of damage. If you have claws, it's slashing. If you have teeth, it's piercing. If you have hooves, it might be bludgeoning. And then if you take that trait multiple times, you gain different natural attack abilities. So if you want to make a character that has claws, teeth, and a bludgeoning tail, you could do that. And you would be foregoing all of the other combat traits, but you're building a character that looks like a dinosaur, right? With teeth, claws, and a bludgeoning tail. And that's totally cool. And that's why we want this to really let characters not just build the mechanics they want, but build the story that they want.
Sure.
To meld those things in a way that you can describe. If your character has flight, that it might be they have wings. It could be that they have some sort of magical ability to do that. It could be that they have gas spouts that come out of their long forms that push them into the air. You could do lots of things with it, and you can build any sorts of character that you want and describe them in any way that you want. And there is fun in saying, well, what does it look like when your character is a master of distraction? Right? How does that work? As a species type trait.
I think it's important. Also, that something that you were touching on there is that all of these traits it specifically states that it's not a visual trait. So your character can look like anything you want it to be, with these traits being its abilities only, and then you can describe that in any way that you want. For instance, we're sort of moving away from where races have a very like every different race has, tabaxis have claws. If you've got like a spider climb type ability, it doesn't have to be claws. It can be suction cups on your fingers or something like that. It doesn't have to be pigeonholed into a certain look of a character at all either. So
Gotcha.
it really opens up the imagination.
Yep.
Yeah, absolutely.
And we're very careful. If you do have new players, then you don't want to force them to pick through these lists. If you want to play something like an elf, we put the traits that you should take from the list right there. And we have a whole long list of, if you want to have something that resembles a normal fantasy race or species, just choose these from the list and you're ready to go.
That's right. And it still fits in with the mechanics that sort of hold the whole thing together as well and keep it balanced.
Yeah, that's great. That's incredible. I mean, it reminds me of almost the I think it was like the Oblivion style of character creation. This was more class work, but it was like, you can take any combination of traits you want, but if you want to be a, sort of this sort of character, an assassin, a thief, a rogue, these are the traits that you should take. I think it also really solves an issue. I think we were talking on the Eldritch Lorecast a couple of months ago about how, you get really locked into playing a specific type of character if you're playing a dwarf, elf, whatever it is, because you end up, not min-maxing your character or not optimizing your character, whereas this sounds like it really lets you narratively build the sort of character you want on top of and have the mechanics really support that. So it's super exciting. Like, I'm getting pumped as you're describing all of this. I'm like, oh, then I could do this and then I could do that.
Yeah.
Just quickly scanning questions from the Discord. Phil, everybody loves your mug, and some people are demanding that they have one as well. That's not an Aurora question. That's just a general question. Folks, we touched on this slightly earlier, but I'm wondering if you can give me sneak peeks, little hints, little examples as well of the exploration and survival mechanics. The Ultimate Hylian Hunter has asked kind of specifically about the threats of Aurora, both monstrous and /or environmental. And I know that we have some environmental style encounters that are included in the book. Can you speak more to those?
Yeah. So, well, exploration, firstly. We have a whole new system that really brings exploration to the forefront. It gives the players a gamified option for exploration. When I'm talking exploration, I'm talking about regional exploration. So when the players or the party gets to a new region, what do they know about that region immediately? What can they learn? And how can they make that? How can they work to learning more about the area in a gamified way with strong rules around it that are very, very clear. So that's been a very big focus. When we're talking about survival, one of the big design choices was, I think, step back. When you talk about survival in D&D and trying to make it a gritty survival campaign, I think a lot of people lean into limiting certain things in certain classes, limiting Goodberry, for instance, the Ranger, limiting what the Ranger can do. And I think one of the first things that we decided to do with that was not to limit characters, because we don't want to take anything away from what the characters can do, people's favorite classes, anything like that. We want to keep it fun for everyone. So one of the big things was how do we get around sort of these, I guess, survival hacks that a lot of the characters can have and still have a survival-based campaign. The way we do that is by making the environment more dangerous, but also giving the characters the tools to be able to work it out and survive those extra dangers. When we're talking about items and being able to use different items to create something that might help them further in their survival. So that's really how we've lent into it. We've really sort of lent right into it in a positive way, rather than trying to pull back from the abilities that make survival a less potent part of the game.
Yeah, for sure. That is the struggle as the game master is kind of going like, it's going to be gritty survival and the players are Goodberry or whatever it is. But you're right. You don't want to limit that. You don't want to take toys away from the players. This is another new mechanic that's been thrown in there. It was asked earlier by Dromal. I apologize. We're only just getting around to this question. Hints for the new advantage system, the advantage system rework, where my understanding is you're no longer just rolling 2 dice and get the higher result, but take it away from there. What can you tell us?
Shawn.
All right. So with this, again, Scott Fitzgerald Gray worked on this. And what we wanted to do was, if you as the game master choose to do this, add a bit of tactical play to what the advantage system does. The advantage system is wonderful in what it does because it does it quickly. You just roll that extra d20 and there you go. There are times though when you may not need the advantage, but you may want to have some fun. So what we have is an advantage system where you get an ability rather than rather than just rolling the extra d20. And this is something that stays with you for a certain amount of time. And it's a different sort of benefit than just rolling that extra d20. So if you get advantage on a role-playing check, you're trying to persuade someone, you can forego that, draw a card, and that card has some different abilities or situations that you can then use at a later time to a greater advantage than just rolling the extra d20 would have been. And there's also ways you can play it with other players, and you can use these. You don't even need to use them as disadvantage thing. You could just pull them out and use them as sort of like magical abilities, because they're very clever in terms of what they can do and how they're used.
Yeah. I think it's very important to note that we're not replacing the advantage system at all. We love the advantage system, and it makes 5e quite unique. We're leaning into it and enhancing it, and giving even more options, as well as the option to roll advantage as per normal.
Sure. I hope I'm not putting either of you on the spot here, because I know that you've been working on this. It's a big document, but do you have any examples of like what one of these kind of role play changes or bonuses might be?
Sure. I'll give you one example.
Okay, great.
Called "Don't Get Cocky." So, if you play this card, you're drawing these randomly, and then they go in onto your character sheet. So when you play this card, when you fail the same type of d20 roll that you drew it for, so attack, roll, ability check, or saving throw, you automatically succeed on the attack check or saving throw, but you have disadvantage on the next roll of the same type. Okay. So this is a very powerful card, right? You keep that there until oh boy, I really need to make this. I'm going to play this. But then the next check you make of that type has disadvantage. So it sort of gamifies disadvantage a little bit, showing sort of the unstable nature of not just the world of Aurora, because magic is going wild and things are creeping through the barriers of space and time and so on, but also the stories are a little unstable, right? You're never quite sure with that survival instinct of what's happening or how it's going to work. So that bit comes into play as well.
Yeah, that's awesome. That instantly I think of a rogue who's like, I'm going to roll this hit. I just want it to hit. Let's get that massive crit damage in there, that sneak attack damage, and then turn it around at the last moment, hoping that this is the attack that fells the monster. Just you and me for a moment here, Shawn. Things just let's bring it down a little bit. Do you have, having mastermind a lot of these realms, having this story in your mind for a long time? I've been reading through some of the worlds, which Phil touched on earlier: Galat, Kor, Mogsterma, Prazalor, and Tievma. That's right, Phil missed out on me being able to try to pronounce all of those. I love the concept that each of the dragons is also slightly different. It really leans into what those dragons, who they are, leans into the lore that is given for the chromatic dragons. And if I can just give a quick example, Thunderclap, who I believe their literal name is Dawilqua, at a guess for the pronunciation, but they're, I love that the book kind of describes them as more of a environmental effect, a storm that happens rather than someone who is actively involved in ruling the land. Can you talk, do either of you have a favorite dragon lord that you really enjoy and want to, can't wait for others to get their hands on?
Sure. My favorite is probably, that's a hard one. I love Venom Tongue, the green dragon. Is that the green dragon? Black dragon, I think. I love the green dragon. What's the green dragon's name again? I get these.
The green dragon's name.
Let's see.
Is it Seihan?
Saihan, yes. I love Saihan, who's very ambitious, but very vain, especially in the way they look. So they're dealing with a bit of this shard scale incursion at the moment, trying to fight it off and trying to find a cure. Not because they're necessarily being driven mad or being taken over by this force. More so because they're quite vain and they don't like the way they look and the way that they are perceived by others from it. So they've got all of their minions running around Tievma trying to find a cure and things like that. But that's not necessarily as easy as one might believe. Because most of the denizens of these realms don't really understand the true nature of shardscale. It's not yet come to fruition, which is, again, I guess, an end game type scenario, which is something which can take your campaign from where it is when you start to the end, and something that can sort of build up over time. So yes, definitely, that's probably my favorite, I think.
Shawn, do you have a favorite?
I don't have a favorite, but I want to draw on what Phil was talking about. Is the role of dragons in this whole campaign, because when this invasion was driven away, dragons sort of became the rulers of all the creatures, and the creatures then, for better or for worse, accepted their roles as not servants, but as sort of secondary creatures to the dragons. They looked on the dragons for leadership. Sometimes that leadership was benevolent, sometimes it was malevolent, but the dragons told the creatures that were spawned from them how to live. And so that's all these creatures knew forever and ever and ever. And when the shard scale strikes and the dragons begin to act erratically, people don't know what to do. And so the dragons are this great, almost a metaphor for when your world is turned upside down, not because of any specific threat, although there are definitely threats, but because just society itself has collapsed. And you are now left to build the society. So throughout the realms, each of these dragons is in a different state, and the realm itself was in a different state before the dragon rage hit and caused all the dragons to sort of lose who they are. So I loved that the players then and the game master get to build the lore that they want rather than have the lore forced upon them for where they are in their particular campaign.
Yeah, for sure.
I love that. Anybody who watches my videos, particularly on Monsters, knows that I love theme. You know, what's the story really about? And I love that the dragons are not just literally the rulers, but they sort of emblematic rather, of what the story in Aurora is about in terms of survival, society, that sort of thing. Just because I think it's in the same realm, Matthew Willetto asks if we can talk about shard scale a little bit more. My question, sort of bouncing off that question with my own, Phil, you mentioned that there are secrets to shard scale that have not yet been revealed. I don't want you to reveal them, obviously, but my question is, will they be revealed in the book? Is this something the game master can arm themselves with the knowledge of, or is it something that's kind of left open for them to be able to play with?
No, it's definitely something that's detailed in the book. I guess the end goal of I guess what the shard scale is, firstly. The end goal of the hive mind that is the shard scale as a whole, and how that affects the creatures in the campaign. We've got rules, templated rules that you can apply the shard scale to any creature, mostly for draconic creatures, but definitely you could apply it to any creature. We use it as almost like our templates we used in 3rd edition or 3.5. Gives you rules to sort of apply this to any creature, and what it will do is it will slowly give the creature extra abilities, combat abilities, and a few other things, but it also has an end game sort of detriment to the character, where they're slowly being taken over body and mind by this shard scale. So little bittersweet. yeah,
it reminds me of the transformations. We yes. love that. As Dale says on the Lorecast, tempt the players. Be like, look, you can have this, but this as well. Speaking of which, quick shout out to our Eldritch Lorecast fans in the chat. Yeah. Appreciate you coming along, backing the Kickstarter. That's very much appreciated. Shawn, they want to see your work in practice. And also quick shout out to the Discord who are asking questions, the Ghostfire Gaming Discord. They've asked a question, or they're having a conversation about monsters. Are there monsters that are provided within this book for that are endemic to the realms of Aurora?
Yes, absolutely. So we've got monsters for sorry for my dogs. We've got monsters for each realm, and then we've got, I guess, monster stat blocks that span across the realms as well. It's important to note each realm is sort of its own, I guess, demi-plane, being protected by what's called the Great Abjuration, which is a part, I guess, the end result of that big ritual that Shawn was talking about, where everybody sacrificed themselves. So that it's all, the way I envision it is almost like a solar system of 5 realms, with Jardol, the dragon goddess, in the middle, protecting them all.
Here's a question, actually. I think it was asked in the chat, but it's one of my questions. Is it traveling between the realms? Is that something that's easy to do, or is that something that's a challenge?
It's something that's dangerous. It can be done. It's dangerous, but there are ways to mitigate that danger. And characters can, I guess, find those ways and utilize them, which may lead to adventure.
Yeah, it's in any good story. That's what you want, right? You want this thing that you have to do, but you want it to be a little dangerous. You want it to be a little unpredictable. Yep. And then as you get more powerful, you might find the resources to be able to do it more easily. And then by the time you're at your most powerful, you'll be able to do it with relative ease.
Yeah, absolutely.
This is a good moment. I feel we've talked a lot about the atmosphere, the story of Aurora, and how the mechanics really support that. Now I want to put you, the audience, in the headspace of Aurora, because literally when we listened to this yesterday as a team, I got chills, literal chills. I'm not being facetious. This is a song that was written specifically and composed specifically for Aurora. I'm going to vamp just a couple of seconds more for Dante to get ready to load that up.
I remember the time, the days long ago, for the cold set in and the river still flowed, when we would sing by the warm firelight, no fear of the frost nor a fear of the ice, when biting cold ruled before their kin-driven mad, the age of desolation. Our protectors, our warriors, our shields, our pride, our strength never bending, with them by our side. Now we have but one goal, one thing which to strive. Only one goal is at hand, and that is to survive.
Deep in the desert, where reptiles run, she flies overhead, silhouetted in sun.
Shifting the sands, bright blue in the night, she'll rise up again, haloed in is his mind driven far?
The shardscale to blame, for all to behold.
What once was our home is now dead, fire and cold. Survive if you can. The realms of our land. Survive this age of desolation. We have but one goal, one thing which to strive. Only one goal is at hand, and that is to survive. Now we have but one goal, one thing which to strive. Only one goal is at hand, and that is to survive.
Amazing.
Sweet.
Literal chills. I cannot speak to how much I love that that song. The music, please Phil, correct me if I get any of this wrong, but reading the credits, the music composed by John Theodore. We have vocals in there by the very talented Anna Pantsu, Cami Cat, apologies, Chase Noseworthy, and John Theodore as well.
Yep.
The lyrics by that team: Anna Pantsu, Cami Cat, John Theodore, Josh from Ghostfire, as well as yourself, Phil Beckwith. Out of all contributing to the story of that song, and of course Shawn, based on your world of Aurora. How do we feel? Are we all shivering right now in like a vibey kind of way?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Hairs on the back of the neck.
Yep.
I just, in the song specifically, the thing that stood out to me was I just love the call to survive. Like there's just a real epicness in that. It gives you the feeling that it gives you a sense of like the desperation of living within the world of Aurora, but also that sense of hope as well of like, you know, we can do this. It is possible. It is possible to work towards a better tomorrow, but first we just have to survive until the next day. Just it chills now, even now, just sort of talking about that. I think, the team's done an absolutely incredible job there. And I honestly think that song will be on, it will be on Spotify. I think John Theodore uploaded it to Spotify, so you can go find it there if you want to add it to your D&D playlist, or even just the music you listen to as you prep your sessions, because I have already added it to mine. Sorry, I'm just quickly reorienting myself, looking for questions to ask. One thing I wanted to ask, if we quickly look at the Kickstarter itself a little bit, the dragon.
The dragon.
There's a dragon. there be a big dragon. Big red dragon, Torishava. The Crimson Doom is coming as is it 15 inches tall or 12 inches tall?
Over 12 inches tall, over 15 inches wide with wingspan.
Are you a fan of miniatures, Phil? Is this something that you were like, we have to have these in there?
Probably can't see up there. I've got a gargantuan dragon up there, which is probably about half the size of this dragon that we're talking about now. This thing is massive.
What I love about it is knowing that folks would want to be able to get access to the dragon, even if they just fall in love with the miniature. There is an entire pledge tier, which is just the PDF and the dragon miniature. So if you just need to add a dragon to your collection, it can, of course, be added to other pledges as well. Quickly looking at the questions. Sorry, friends. I'm just the spooks from the trailer. Just jumping back to classes very quickly, there was a question very early on by Noah who was asking if there's any dragon-specific warlocks, if you can have a warlock that is tied to one of the dragons.
Good question.
Let me take...
Yeah, you take a look, I'll take a look. Okay. Ben, keep talking.
And then also just kind of like the subclasses in general, are they, we talked about how they're couched in the realm. Can you give some other examples of like classes that really tie to one of the other realms from Aurora?
So many of the subclasses are more about the setting than dragons specifically.
Yeah.
So we have one. There is one there's a warlock based in Tyvimur called the Warlock of the Lost Beast.
Yeah.
The Lost Beasts are a group of creatures. I don't want to spoil too much.
Yeah.
But so we have a warlock that is connected to the Lost Beasts.
Yeah.
Of that
sort of
region.
magical creatures, aren't they?
Yes.
Yeah.
There's a cleric that is associated with Jadol, who is the dragon goddess, who took on everyone's traits. There's a druid of sand, circle of sand. One of the realms is a sand-covered wasteland. Buried underneath it, though, are remnants of the previous civilization.
Mm-hmm.
So there's a duality there, but the druid, circle of sand druid, and the dogs are very, very excited about this. And then we have some more simplistic ones, like a hedge mage wizard. So you're a wizard, but you've never had the abilities to study spell books too much. So you learned your magic through simple acts of survival in your settlement. And then when magic comes rushing back into the world after the dragon rage happens, you start gaining more abilities.
Right. Yeah, those sound sick. I'm super excited. Just looking, I was quickly scrolling down the pledge tiers just to know what it is people are in store for. So we've of course got the PDF level pledge tier, which is I think $25 US, and then going up to the base kind of get the physical book pledge tier for the $55, which comes with hardcover copy, PDF, and it also comes with the player journal. Phil, can you talk to me a little bit about the player journal? Because the class or the character creation has been changed so much that it almost feels necessary for a new style of like a character sheet or something like that. Is that included in there?
Yeah, that's right. So we're developing a character sheet that reflects the changes in how you create your character from Scott Fitzgerald's mechanics. Then it's also so the book itself is a notebook with a bit of an appendix in it, which gives you the advantage cards in there, entries. It gives you with the rules on those. It gives you the what else do we have in there? The character sheet. It gives you the all of the traits that you can choose from to build your character, so that you can go back and check on those, I guess, and reference those as you play, just as your own little sort of handy book as well. So we're trying to make, because the main book itself has a lot of player-facing content in it as well. We wanted to bring that into the player journal, so the players can have their own little mini reference as well, and a place that they can write all their campaign notes in at the same time.
For sure. I also love the next pledge tier up, the Adventurer of Desolation. Comes with all that same stuff, but it's also got the card decks for the character creation, and that's I think one of the best products that was ever initially designed was those spell card cards, so that you could have your spells in front of you, and it's not like, how much damage does this spell do? Kind of trying to flick through the book to find it specifically. I love reference material that's easily referenced like that. And we've got those for... We've got those for the advantage card deck, Shawn, as you mentioned earlier. It's draw a card, gain some sort of benefit. We've got those for the character creation. And we also, I think at higher pledge tiers, have the exploration or random encounter card decks as well.
Yes. Yep. True. Just on the advantage card deck, the advantage system does use these cards to draw them randomly, but we're also providing a table in the book so that you can roll on it if you don't back a tier that has the card deck. So just so that's clear for everybody.
Gotcha. There was a question. This is kind of a thematic question, but I've been enjoying it, and I think that it leads into some other interesting questions about Aurora generally. They were talking in the YouTube chat about like, what if we like combined all the realms? What if like a magical force could bring Aurora back together? I'm assuming that's not in the scope of the book, but it certainly could be in the scope of somebody's high level adventure that they play themselves.
Aurora. Sort of bringing it back to what it was, but maybe not what it was, but different.
Sure.
Yeah, it's the one of the conceits of the game is when these 5 realms were created and separated, they became the epitome of the dragon that was set to rule over them. So, you think of regional effects in a regular game of 5e. A certain dragon will have an effect on a small area around its lair. We dialed that up to 11 for this, for the conceit of this game. So what happens then when you have a realm of pure fire and volcano, and it comes back together with a realm of Arctic tundra? That's a great question. You tell me what happens. And more importantly, what happens to the characters that are caught in that crossfire, not only of the regional, but of the dragons themselves now being intermingled with each other.
That's right. Yeah. And what are the effects of either the shardscale or the after effects of the shardscale as well? Will they be the same? Who knows?
Sure. Okay. Building that mystery. Right. I like it.
But each realm or most realms also have they have the obvious thing about them. Then there is sort of the undercurrent about them. So, we wanted each realm not just to be the general trope of red dragon is lava and volcano. And you mentioned that earlier. There's always something else going on in that region. It may be a region of dreams. It may be a region of sort of, demonic influence. There are other things happening in all the realms.
Yeah.
So everything, there's always something else to worry about, because when the dragons were in power, they kept these threats away from their offspring. And then now that the dragons are no longer in a position mentally, physically, or otherwise to keep those threats away, those threats are manifesting themselves as well. So it's not just the dragons that the characters need to worry about. It's not just the shard scale. It's these other threats that have always been present in the region, but held at bay by dragons.
And I guess the other folks as well. Everyone's trying to vie for materials, for resources to survive. That creates conflict. So.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, it was a question from Green Grunt 4 on YouTube, asked what is the nature of the 5 realms as far as things like politics, rulers, organizations. Does that kind of lend into this discussion a little bit, discussing if they're, there's other stuff going on there than just the dragon and the environment?
100%. Yeah, that's right. Shawn, sorry, were you going to say something then?
Oh, all I was going to say was in other settings, one of the first things that you fall back on story-wise in terms of politics is the species, the race. All the dwarves do this. You can't do that. Well, you can do that, but the story doesn't lend itself to do that in this. So what does draw people together? You know what's really great at drawing people together? Strong leaders. You know who can be strong leaders? Your character. Your character can be the one that draws people, draws everyone to them. You are going to create the organizations that will be influential. You don't just join them, you make them.
Yeah, that's right.
Right. The moths flock to the brightest flame. That was a weird analogy I pulled out of nowhere. There was a question here, Aurora. What would happen if Aurora was to combine with other worlds like the Shadowfell? And I think just springing off that question a little bit, these mechanics, these survival mechanics, the new advantage system, even the new character creation system, could all be ported into, like, if somebody's running a homebrew or they're running, some sort of campaign that is in an extreme environment, all these rules work elsewhere as well, whether
Absolutely.
you're portaling into Aurora or not. Phil, what are you excited for people to be able to grab and take to their own campaign settings?
I am in love with the exploration system. Cody Fork, big shout out to Cody Fork who developed that for us. It's fantastic. Basically, a little bit of a sneak peek into it. Basically, each realm has a character sheet, almost called a realm sheet or a regional sheet. And the DM has a complete filled out one. The players get given a blank one, which they can then populate. So it really gamifies. You put a blank sheet with fillable areas, fillable lines in it for players to fill out when they get into a regional. They're going to want to complete that thing and fill it out to find out what's there. It really brings them into a bit of more of a gamified mode, and I'm really excited to bring that to the table. And people can then take that, and they can take that into any setting they want from there, whether it's their own homebrew setting or one of Wizards of the Coast official settings. They can bring it with them.
In my mind, I'm thinking very specifically about the White Dragon realm kind of working as an analogy for Valakar, or visiting I think it's the Smoking Spire at the northern end of the Grey Spine. Someone in the Discord's going to be upset that I don't get that right off the top of my head. But it could be, you can use elements from that.
Absolutely.
From Mogsternum. Shawn, what about you? What's something that you're excited for people to be able to pull out and use in their games?
I'm all about the new character creation part, right? Just being able to envision the exact character you want to play, and then build that both mechanically and narratively using the same sort of list, and how game masters can choose to give more traits or fewer traits depending on their party, to gauge the level of difficulty that they want. You can give fewer traits, or give one combat trait but many exploration traits or many role-playing traits to emphasize that side of the game, if that's what you choose to do. Really lets game masters tinker with how they want their characters, will be going through the narrative that the table tells, together to put that together.
Yeah, that's fantastic.
Yeah, it's just it is really exciting to me now that, like, I don't know why, but like for the first time it's like hitting me that, like, yes, you get all these character options. You create your character from, is it 7 options? From the 80, you kind of pull 7 to create it, but then your class, goes on top of that to give your character even more fidelity and more expertise in what they're good at. And then your background, which is it 15 backgrounds you mentioned before, Phil?
15,
that are specific to Aurora also kind of go on top of that. So yeah, there's just so much customization in here, which I really, really love. There was a question, just jumping quickly back to the Kickstarter itself. We were actually we were up to the Raider pledge tier, which is the PDF, and Tori Shivar, the Crimson Doom, the miniature itself. But the next one along, the Dragon Slayer pledge, comes with the tactical battle maps. And the question was around whether we could speak a little bit to those. Are they physical maps?
They are. They're double-sided poster. The double-sided poster maps. Each realm gets a poster map each, and each side has a different map on it. So they're easy just to bring it out. You've got a Mogsterma fight next to exploding lava and volcanoes, all of these environmental challenges happening at the same time as trying to battle off a red dragon or some dinosaurs or something like that. You can place that down and straight away you're in the scene.
Gotcha. That's also the pledge tier that first comes with the other miniatures as well. We've got the shardscale infected kobolds. Is it Dragor?
Dragar.
Dragar. Tell me about those, because we teased those quite a while ago, but they look amazing in miniature format.
Well, first of all, I want to give credit where it's due. I think it was Susan Helmai who came up with this idea, and it was brilliant because a centaur is half humanoid, half horse. Well, a dragar is half humanoid, half dragon tail end, and the art for them and the miniature for them are amazing, and there's such a visceral reaction I get to seeing that. It's really off-putting for some reason to see that combination of sort of a dragonborn top but then a dragon back end. It's
cool.
Yep. And there will be an ability to play kobolds, dragonborn, and dragar as well in the game.
Or if you like, you could even mix those draconic traits into the standard list of traits as well to make even more combinations.
I love the Dragonborn Sorcerer miniature as well. There's just something very powerful about that thing lifting itself in the air with its latent magic. And we've mentioned it a few times, but I just want to quickly show it off. If you need a closer look at it, the Torishavar Crimson Doom miniature, which I think even dwarves. I've got a couple on my shelf back here, but I think it even dwarves both of these two at a guess on the size of this thing. It's huge, and I love the thing that I love about it is that it's so textured as well. I mean, all the miniatures are painting scales, especially. Just going to get my wargaming miniature painting nerd on for a second here. Painting scales is just a dream if you love dry brushing, and these things are super scaly and super detailed to be able to mix colors and change shades as you go across the surface of the thing. So it's gonna paint up well, let me put it that way. Champion Pledge tier adds I believe the GM screen, the slipcase, which we're doing for the first time. We're also doing the leather mat, which you roll out and then it acts sort of as a little dice tray or dice mat. They're really nice. I've seen sort of similar things before, and they're very convenient as well, the way they just roll up. They're perfect if you're as I say, dice Jedi, somebody who has like their one set of dice, their one like lightsaber of dice, and that's the set that you use when you come to play D&D. And then, of course, that comes with the special edition slipcase. But I should just mention quickly, if you have pledged, thank you, first of all, but also if you have pledged or if you pledge within the first 48 hours of the Kickstarter, there's about 40 hours of that left, you get an automatic upgrade to the special edition cover for your hardback copy. Yes, thank you. Yes, I should clarify, Phil, as well. It is just the book itself. It's not the slipcase, but you get upgraded with the book if you back Survivalist, Adventurer, and Dragon Slayer pledge tiers. So if you're on the fence, could be a good time to jump in. Let me quickly jump back. Go ahead.
On the special edition cover, we actually have Ralph Horsley doing the special edition cover. He does some fantastic art. He's done a lot of art for like Magic the Gathering and Dungeons and Dragons and all sorts of things. The Adventures in Middle Earth covers are fantastic. So he's doing that, and it's really evocative. Really shows the struggles that are happening in Mogsterma. So yeah, I'm super excited for that too.
I love how excited. I'm just quickly reading the chat. I love how excited they all are for their, like high level play. Let's bring the realms back together. Let's figure out ways to reforge them. Omen Heart saying, what if they become a force for chaos? Not only evil, but also the dragons are afraid of you. You can do that in Aurora if you work for it, Omen Heart. If you work for it, I'm sure. I'm just quickly reading another question. I don't know if we know the answer to this. This is Jason S. has asked whether Aurora, like Grim Hollow, will have multiple campaigns going forward. I don't think we have an answer to that. We're still just focused on delivering the here and now first.
Yeah, that's great.
Yeah, there are many ideas. Whether those ideas will turn themselves into physical products or anything like that has yet to be seen. But there's definitely enough content in the minds of everyone at Ghostfire and of all the freelancers who worked on this project that we could definitely do more if the market tells us that we should.
Yeah, for sure. Exactly. If we know that there is demand for Aurora, let us know. It is one of the joys being in my very privileged position of seeing behind the scenes of how these creative things come up. On the one hand, there is sometimes heartbreak of like, oh, that was such a cool idea. But I think it's definitely a process of letting the best ideas float to the top, letting the stuff that's going to work best in the game come to the fore. And with 80 new class options, then you're not going to be disappointed. Mr. Matt Whitbrook asking, is there a specific character you guys want to create in the past but not been able to until this new system? Do you have traits in your own mind, Shawn, that you're like, as soon as I get to be a player in Aurora, I'm going to put these ones together to create that?
There are so many, like Phil said, if you do the math on it, there's millions, if not more, combinations that you could create. But I love the idea of having the ability to create an otter character, an otter-based character, and just thinking through what swim speed. Okay, so one of my exploration traits is going to be taking the swim speed, but also playful. So maybe we'll take a good at deception role playing trait, and all of those things. Just being able to, off the top of your head, come up with something and then instantly find what you're looking for is such a blessing. And having rules that can do that are so helpful for players and game masters.
Because, like you said, the ingredients that you build your character from are not necessarily prescriptive, to use one of my favorite terms, in terms of like what it is that's representing. Am I correct? So it's like, if you want a swim speed, you kind of add that as one of your abilities, but that could mean that you've got flippers. It could mean that you're magically can compel yourself through the water like Aquaman. I did leave out, I think, the two highest pledge tiers. We've of course got the Champion of Jardol, which pretty much comes with most things, but there is of course the Destroyer of Realms, $500 pledge tier, which does come with everything,
all the things.
For this tier specifically, I want to stress that for this tier specifically, shipping is also included. So we are so confident that we can get that one out the door at 500 that we are offering you the opportunity to get everything.
Also, this includes all the stretch goal add-ons that you would otherwise usually have to add on after the Kickstarter. This includes all of those included in the cost. It includes just everything all in one. Everything that comes in this Kickstarter, everything that's produced for this Kickstarter, you will get.
Yeah. There's a pledge breakdown sort of further down that will show you specifically what each of the tiers get. The Destroyer of Realms, is it? Yeah, the Destroyer of Realms isn't listed there, but that's because it doesn't need to be. You get all of it. So with that being said, just very quickly, Phil, what's a character that you're excited to play that you think you're going to build with the...
Pretty much. I'm a massive comic book fan. So pretty much any comic book hero you can make in this if you wanted to. So you could take this system and you wouldn't even, it doesn't even have to be a fantasy setting. You could take it into any setting. I would love to make like, I guess the thing from Fantastic Four. I would love that. You can do that. It'd be fantastic.
It would be fantastic indeed.
Did it?
All right. Well, I think we are just about out of time there. So thank you, everybody who joined us live in the chat. Thank you for your questions. Thank you, Phil and Shawn, for lending me your time. I really appreciate you taking the time to come and answer some questions with me, especially with the time zone turly squirreliness, for want of a better word. If you haven't already, check out the Aurora Kickstarter. There is a link in the description to this video, so you can click, get straight there, and have a look at everything that we've been talking about if you haven't already. If you have pledged, thank you so much for pledging. We really appreciate the support as always, and we hope that you're as excited about Aurora as we are. And don't forget, the first 48 hours on those lower pledge tiers, you'll get that free upgrade to the Collector's Edition hardcover artwork on your hard copy of the book. So with all that said, thank you, Project Manager Phil Beckwith. Thank you, Lead Designer Shawn Merwin. And until next time, we will catch you all sometime. I'm sure.
The tale of Aurora and the 5 realms is ancient. It began long ago when the dragons arrived from another world. But a great evil had followed them. Together, we stood against it, the dragons at our side. Yet evil does not release its grip so easily. And in our most desperate hour, a powerful being was set forth to turn the tide. Alas, our victory came at great cost. The world of Aurora broke into 5 realms, each its own plane. They became harsh places to survive, each realm with its own unique challenges. Exploring these hellscapes was pivotal to survival, though rarely an easy task. Then the dragons turned on Aurora, and our survival became harder still. The dragons changed and became savage. But we learned to adapt and overcome these challenges. The time is nigh. You are our final hope for survival. But first you must survive. Aurora.
I remember the time, the days long ago, for the cold set in and the river still flowed. When we would sing by the warm firelight.